Hello students, Mr. Yan here. We're still working on our Religions of the World unit. Today we're learning all about Buddhism. So Buddhism is considered a major religion of the world, but it's the smallest of our world religions that we're going to study for now. Estimates of Buddhists in the world are about 4 to 500 million people, representing about 8% of the total population of the world. Fun fact, Buddhism was born in India, but today's largest concentration of Buddhists is in China. Let's learn all about it on the very next page. So Buddhism began with a guy by the name of Siddhartha Gautama. Siddhartha was born in BC 563 and was the prince of a small Indian kingdom, so an elite, a noble. Being a prince, he had everything that he ever needed and basically grew up in a sheltered life of opulence in his palace. One day as an adult, he left his palace to see how the normal people lived, and he was appalled by what he saw, all the poverty and illness. Now, at this point, Siddhartha left everything he had, including his wife and son. He left it all behind to become a traveling monk searching for the answers to the meaning of life. He said, or it's said that he went to many teachers to find wisdom at the time, so it would have been he was going to a lot of Hindu teachers trying to find this wisdom and the solution to all of life's problems. It's said he practiced self-deprivation, consuming very little food each day, basically eating as little as possible to stay alive. None of these things worked. He was not finding enlightenment. It's said that after meditating for 49 days underneath a tree, he found enlightenment. So he didn't find it from anyone else. He just sat under a tree and found it himself. He found this enlightenment and thus became the Buddha, or the Enlightened One. He went on to teach what he had learned, which of course became Buddhism. Here he is, becoming enlightened. Now, Buddha was convinced that the cause of suffering was people more or less had their priorities mixed up. This can be explained with what Buddha called the Four Noble Truths. Truth number 1, life is full of suffering. 2, people suffer because they desire worldly things. 3, the way to stop suffering is to stop desiring worldly things. And 4, the only way to stop desiring things is to follow the Eightfold Path. What's the Eightfold Path? Let's take a look. Number 1, know and understand the Four Noble Truths. Well, very entwined. Number 2, give up worldly things and do not harm others. So it's a non-violent religion. Number 3, tell the truth, do not gossip, and do not speak badly of others. All right. Number 4, do not commit evil acts such as killing, stealing, or living the unclean life. Number 5, do rewarding work. Number 6, work for good and oppose evil. Number 7, make sure your mind keeps your senses under control. And number 8, practice meditation to see the world in a new way. So a lot of this was avoiding extremes is a major tenet of Buddhism. So, don't do too little things, don't do too much. So don't eat too much, don't eat too little. That whole part about, keeping your senses under control. That means it's a lot of, don't overindulge in any particular sort of pleasure. That's what that really means. So once a person followed the Eightfold Path and was able to free themselves from worldly desires, they would reach what was called nirvana, which is this state of spiritual peace and happiness, enlightenment, if you will. Buddhists, like Hindus, believed in reincarnation. But Buddhists thought that this cycle of reincarnation, this cycle of rebirth, could be ended by following the Eightfold Path. It's for this reason Buddhists attract many of the lowest status people of India, because if you were of a very low social class in India and you were a Hindu, you had to die and be reincarnated, climbing that ladder until you, became one with Brahma, and would die for good and reach their form of heaven. But with Buddhism, as long as you followed the Eightfold Path, you didn't have to be reincarnated. If you achieved nirvana, you could just die and be at peace. So that attracted a lot of Hindus, particularly of the low class. Here's the Eightfold Path in graphic form for you people that like pictures. Now, like many other religions, there were disagreements after the death of the founder. So after Buddha dies, there's different interpretations of Buddhism. For example, you have the Theravada Buddhists that believe Buddha was not a god. The Mahayana Buddhists believe Buddha was a god, and that if one worshipped Buddha, they could die and go to heaven, where they would then reach nirvana. So they believe you didn't have to necessarily achieve nirvana to go to heaven. You could go to heaven and achieve nirvana there. These are little subtle differences. As mentioned in the beginning of the lesson, despite originating in India, as an Indian prince, most Buddhists don't live there currently. It's still primarily a Hindu place. They're spread around the Southeast and East Asia in countries like Sri Lanka, Tibet, and China. You can see on this awesome little map here where Buddhism exists in the world. It's very dark right there. Now, to learn more about Buddhism, feel free to check out your textbook. It's Chapter 9, Lesson 2, or check out this video from, you guessed it, Hip Use. It's linked into your ARC. Another 101 video there. You've got Buddhism 101. That's about a 10-minute video. Your assignment for today, another 10-point quiz. Interesting little essay question on here asking you to describe the differences between reincarnation from Hinduism and Buddhism. So you might have to look back at the last lesson to figure that out if you don't remember. That's it for today. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, have a good one, alright? We'll pick it up again tomorrow.